Hi folks, today I want to take a look at a new state management library for React that I think has a lot of promise, and it's called Recoil. By the end of this video, you'll be able to get up and running with it and use it in your own projects. Now, there are a bunch of existing state management solutions out there, such as Redux and MobX, but these solutions can require a lot of boilerplate or have a steep learning curve. That's why I prefer to just use regular old React state and context for my apps. In fact, the last time I used Redux in a project was almost a year ago. But React State has its limits, and Recoil was released a few weeks ago as an experimental library that aims to address those use cases that React itself can't solve. And the main difference between Recoil and existing solutions is that it's incredibly simple, and it feels like you're just writing React. So let's dive into learning Recoil by building a simple to-do list app. The link to the GitHub repo is in the description below if you want to clone it and follow along. Also, if you like this video and want to see more, please be sure to follow me on Twitter at JacquesCodes. So we have this to-do list app called Task Hero. We have all of the UI built out already. We have a nice logo and some tasks, just hard-coded in for now. We also have an input to add tasks. We can type a new task, press enter, and our new task will be logged to the console. We also have some useful stats up here, so the tasks that were completed and the number of tasks remaining. And finally, we have a dark mode switch. Of course, all of this is hard-coded, and our job now is to make it interactive and useful by adding some state. So let's start by heading over to our terminal and adding Recoil. Now that we have Recoil added, let's head over to our index file of our app and import Recoil root. And now let's wrap the whole app in a Recoil root component. There's only one Recoil root component per app, and everything within Recoil, all of the state, exists under this one Recoil root provider. Next, we'll hook up our dark mode switch. So let's head over to our header file, and to hook up our dark mode switch, we will use an atom. So let's import atom from Recoil. So we're going to call our atom dark mode state, and we will give it a key, say dark mode for the key, and the default value, I'm going to say true. So to get and set our dark mode state atom, we're going to use a use Recoil state hook, which we're going to import from Recoil. So let's import that. And the use Recoil state hook works very similar to React's own use state. And you can see we currently have a use state that makes our switch stateful, but we can actually just swap it out for a use Recoil state. But instead of passing in a default value over here, which is what you would do with use state, we pass in the atom that we want to get and set. And now you can see that our switch still works. Next, let's export this atom. And now let's head over to our app file. And in our app file, we have this theme provider where we can pass in dark mode true or dark mode false. And you can see if I pass in false, it renders out this light UI. So we want to get the value of our atom that we set earlier, and we want to pass it in here. So we can do that by importing our atom. So let's import it from header, and we called it dark mode state. Let's bring that in. So now we can import another hook from Recoil called use Recoil value. So let's create a variable called dark mode and use our use Recoil value hook and pass in our dark mode state atom. And now this dark mode value over here is going to be the value of our atom. And you'll notice here that we're using a use Recoil value hook instead of a use Recoil state hook. And you can see here that the use Recoil state hook gives you the value of the atom, but it also gives you a setter function that allows you to set the atom. But if you just need the value, then you can just use the use Recoil value hook, which is what we do here. And now you can see our dark mode is hooked up. And now we have very simple shared state thanks to Recoil. Next, let's store our list of tasks. So we're going to head over to our tasks file, and we're going to use an atom again. So let's import atom from Recoil, and we're going to create a new atom. Let's call this tasks state, and let's say the key is just going to be tasks, and the default value will just be an empty array. Now this is going to store an array of task IDs for us. So I just need to tell TypeScript that it's going to be an array of numbers. So let's import a useRecoil value hook, and we're going to say tasks is equal to useRecoil value, and pass in our atom. And here we're going to get the array of task IDs, meaning we can map over it. And just to keep React happy, we need to pass in a key as well. And let's pass in the ID of the task to the task component. So of course, because our default value for tasks is an empty array, we don't have any tasks. So let's deal with actually inserting some. So let's head over to our input component. And when we press enter, we want to insert a new task. So let's import the useRecoil state hook. And what we want to do here is insert a new task ID when you insert a new task. And one thing we forgot to do is export our task state from our tasks component. So let's head back and do that quickly. So let's export it here and head back to our input. And now we can import from our tasks component. We import our tasks state. And now we can use our useRecoil state hook and pass in our task state. So now when we insert a new task, we're going to set tasks and spread in the current value of tasks, but then also add a new ID, which is just one higher than the current ID. So for that, I'll just say tasks.length. So that's going to give us a very simple auto increment numerical ID. And now, when we add a new task, you can see that the task is inserted. But you can see that we don't actually have a label hooked up for our task yet. So somehow we need to get the label that we type into this input and store it somewhere so that we can display it for the task. So let's head over to our task component to solve this. And for this, we're going to use an atom family. So let's import atom family from Recoil. And now we're going to create a new atom family. So let's say task state, so singular, and create a new atom family. And the key is going to be task. And the default value for this will be an object with an empty label and a complete value of false. And now in our task component, we want to display the label of a specific task and whether it's complete or not. So let's import useRecoil value. And now we can say task is equal to useRecoil value and pass in our atom family. But because it's an atom family, we pass in the ID of the task that we want to get the value for. So you can think of an atom family as being a function that returns an atom for a specific item. So if we have multiple items like tasks that are all grouped together, the atom family allows us to store each task in its own atom. And we can refer back to that same atom using the same task ID. And here we have our label and our complete value for that task. So we can just destructure it over here. So let's say complete and label, and we can remove our placeholders. Now, if we insert a new task, you can see that it's inserted, but we insert it with the default value, which is a blank label. So let's head back to our input component to rectify this. So what we want to do is when we insert a new task, we want to set the value of that specific atom to contain the label that we insert here. Let's import our task state. So here we will have task and set task, and then we can pass in our atom family, but we also need to pass in the ID of our task. But when we're inserting a task, we'll only know what the ID of the new task is over here. We won't know it up here in the render method. So this isn't going to work for us, but there is a different solution. So let's import useRecoil callback from Recoil, and let's create a new function here called insert task and use useRecoil callback, and let's pass a function into that and return a function from that. And our function is going to take in a label, which will be a string. And if I hover over insert task here, you can see that the type signature of our insert task function is the same as the type signature of this function. And that's because the function that we return here is the function that's called when we call insert task. And the useRequel callback gives us a handy set function, which we can use to set atom values. So let's do that. Firstly, let's move our set tasks call from down here and move it into our useRequel callback. And instead of calling set tasks, we can call set and pass in the atom that we want to set as the first argument and the value as the second. And just to make it a little bit clearer, let's extract out the new ID of our task into a variable. So let's say new task ID is equal to tasks.length and pass in new task ID into our array of tasks. Next, we can call set task state and pass in our new task ID. And this gives us the atom for our new task. And as the second argument here, we can pass in label, which will just be the label that is passed in over here. And we will say complete is false. And now we can call our insert task function down here and pass in our label. And now when we insert a task, you can see that our task is inserted into the task state array, and we get the atom for our new task, set the label, and it gets displayed here. And now if we head over to our task component, we can also hook up the checkbox. So let's turn this useRequel value into a useRequel state, because we're going to be setting our atom now. Let's bring in set task. And now in our onClick, we can call set task, and we're going to make sure we set the label to be the same as it was, but our complete value is going to be the opposite of our current complete value. So now if we insert a task and we check it, we get to toggle whether it's complete or not. So now that we're familiar with atoms, let's take a look at how we can use selectors to hook up our stats over here. So let's import selector from Recoil, and we're going to create a new selector that will count the number of tasks that are complete. So let's call it tasks complete state and create a selector. And for the selector, we can also pass in a key. So let's say tasks complete. And we also pass a get function into our selector. And for now, let's just return the number 0 from our get function. And now let's import useRequel value, and let's create a variable called tasks complete and use the useRequel value hook and pass in our selector. And now if we pass in our tasks complete value to our stat, you can see that the value returned by our get function over here is displayed here. And this shows that you can pass either an atom or a selector into useRequel value or into useRequel state. Next, let's destructure the get function that the selector provides us. And now let's get an array of our task IDs. So let's say task IDs is equal to get and pass in our task state atom. And let's make sure we have imported our task state. And now if we open up the console, you can see that we get an empty array. But if we insert a new task, we get an array with one task ID, and so on and so forth. Next, we want to get all of our tasks. And to do this, we can map over our task IDs. And for each task ID, we can call get again. But this time, we're going to get each of our individual task atoms. So let's import those. And then we just pass in the ID of our task to the atom family to get our individual atoms. And now if I log out our tasks, you can see we get an empty array again. And each time I insert a new task, or one of the tasks changes, our selector reruns, and we get an array of tasks. Next, we can filter our tasks array to only get the complete tasks, and just get the length of that array. And now, if we insert a few tasks, and we mark them as complete, you can see that our tasks complete value updates automatically. So if any atom that you get within a selector changes, the selector will rerun automatically. So you can see I've just done the same here for our remaining task stat. I've just inverted the condition over here. And now, As we insert tasks, you can see our task remaining value ticking up. And as I tick the tasks, you can see the tasks complete value increasing while the tasks remaining value decreases. And that is how you can build simple derived state using Recoil. I think Recoil's React-like feel and elegant simplicity, but still powerful features, make it a great contender to existing solutions. It is still experimental, but it'll hopefully be ready for us all to use in production real soon. So, in summary, we've learned how we can use Recoil's atoms to store state and share it across components, and how we can use selectors to derive other state values from our atoms. There's so much more to Recoil than this though, and if people find this video helpful, I'll be posting another one soon covering the more advanced features of Recoil, such as state persistence, asynchronous data fetching, React suspense compatibility, snapshots, dev tools, and more. So if you found it useful and would like to see more, please be sure to give the video a like and follow me at Jacques Codes on Twitter, or subscribe to my channel to stay updated. Also, please leave any questions you have in the comments below or mention me on Twitter. I'd be more than happy to answer them. This is my first video, and I'd love to create more if people find these videos useful. And like I said, if you did, please give it a like and subscribe. Cheers.